Hi everyone, today is Tuesday, July 17, and I wanted to say good morning from the global economic north. I'm not sure what to call this video, but I wanted to share that I was particularly disturbed by some commentary by this, I call them refugee-settlers. And, some people may say, oh, that's kind of a harsh term, and that all black folk are sort of, they should be on the same page. But the reality of the situation is that within the black community, there is a lot of diversity, and I live in a community where I do interact with a lot of black folk, but you also have black folk that are not all Canadian or not all Canadian born, or have been raised in different communities all over the world where they adopt and are socialized in a very different way. So when you come across another person that has the same color skin as you, you should be able to say, hey, how's it going, or say hello to that person. But I noticed that people that tend to be from these black people that tend to be from places like Somalia, and what is the other one? I forget. In Eastern Africa there, I was just interested to even read that within some of their communities, some of them don't even think that they are black. They actually think of themselves consciously as a white person, or aspire to be like a white woman or a white man. So I was just looking at some articles about what was happening between this situation between the current Canada Minister of Immigration, and apparently, there was this comment that he made that he was telling the Ontario Minister of Children and Community Services, and she also has the immigration portfolio. He was telling her this first of all, this Somali man of color was telling a white female who was logically presenting things to him. He had the nerves to say to her that she is being un-Canadian. And I know that in the journalism field, and a lot of the stuff that is written in the Western hemisphere of planet Earth, a lot of the stuff that is written is very sensationalized. So it's sad that you can't actually read one article and get different positions, because it's always slanted towards some kind of agenda. So I was just looking on the internet, and I was trying to understand, why did this guy even say that this other minister was not Canadian? And the funny thing was that I was really thinking about it, and this guy, Mr. Ahmed Hussen, or however you say his name, he was actually chosen to take care of the Canada immigration portfolio. And I will also say that I'm definitely not a supporter of the Liberal Party of Canada. I think that when people are not informed, or just not aware, that maybe they will vote for the Liberal Party of Canada, but I do think that people need to be more educated about even what this whole thing called liberalizing means. And it means to exploit everything and be accountable to nothing. And part of my understanding of this thing called the Liberal Party of Canada also came from me doing some research in university around different policy positions around different issues, and it just seemed like the Liberal Party of Canada was very, very problematic. So I was trying to understand what is this thing that's being said in the news about, the Canada immigration minister calling this white female un-Canadian. And I read some articles. Sorry, I have my notebook here. And I read this article on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation website. But what I find with, also known as CBC, what I find with CBC is that CBC is very, very poor when it comes to their journalism. And they try and put this picture out there to show visually that they may be accommodating different people or different communities or diversity. But when you look at who has been employed for a long time with CBC, it's again predominantly this generic culture. And then when you explore the perspectives, they don't even go into analysis, for example, from all political parties that are registered with Elections Canada. They don't even explore all of their perspectives to an issue. They always slant things to, make it seem like it's sort of this promotional material for the Liberal Party of Canada. And I read an article that was written by the CBC just to see what was said, but I had to go to some other sources to try and understand more intelligently and intellectually what this issue was. So I came across this website, and it's called Rebel, I think it's, 1 second here. Yeah, it's, oh shoot, I didn't even make a note of it. Basically, this video, the title of this video, it was called Raw Watch Canada's Immigration Minister Ahmed Hussen Avoid Questions About FGM, and it was actually published on December 11, 2017. Now, as part of, just making comments about what is Canadian or what is not Canadian, I also won't be apologetic to what should be, discussions where people are actually authentic with what they're saying. And the interesting thing about this Ahmed Hussen, or however you say his name, is that first of all, he promotes himself as sort of this poster boy refugee guy. And, there's a lot of this garbage written about him to say that, he should be supported because he came into the country as a refugee and, he went through a professional school to get a professional designation. But just because you graduate from anything related to a university is not to say that you're actually a person who is capable of complex thinking. And, this guy had the nerves to say to the Ontario minister, her name is it Lisa MacLeod? 1 second here. Yes, to the Ontario minister, Lisa MacLeod, he had the nerves to say to her that she was un-Canadian because she also said that the federal government should be responsible for the expenses that are associated with people who don't follow immigration rules. And, the term that was used is called irregular immigration and irregular migration. And she was saying in some meeting in Winnipeg, Canada, that, in the Ontario situation, this is a huge problem where when these people come into the country, first of all, through, these alternative ways, and, all these supports and, let's say supports, have to be dished out to these people. Like they have to find housing for them. They have to find jobs for them. And, I say to myself, like, I think this Ahmed Hussen should really step down, because I don't think that he has a clue what it is to even be Canadian. Because, not to sort of out myself, but I'm very aware of who this Ahmed Hussen person is. And when you call his office, first of all, you get these people who pick up the phone who can't even understand English. They don't understand nuances of the English language. So even though you're trying to get information about, different things related to even bettering yourself or contributing to the Canadian nation state, you can't even communicate with these people that are answering the phone, because they can't understand what you're saying. As me, for example, speaking, as I think I speak clear enough to understand what is being said. So you can't understand what these people are saying, first of all, when they pick up the phone. Then when they pick up the phone and you ask them a question, they get very, very defensive on the phone. Thirdly, when you actually look at this guy, Ahmed Hussen, or however his name is said, this guy doesn't even live in the riding that he was elected to represent. So he mails a lot of this, propaganda stuff, and it talks about, how the Liberals are doing all these wonderful things. And I'm going to do another video actually just breaking down how he puts these things together, because on one hand he's promoting this idea that it should be about diversity and multiculturalism, but on the other hand he's representing one, if not the worst political riding in North America when it comes to poverty and crime. And people have contacted his office saying, look, how do we actually get out of this situation? We're interested in doing ABC, and he doesn't come up with anything tactical or anything strategic if it doesn't benefit what seems to be even his own Somali community. And when it comes to, issues in the black community, I am a black female, and I'm very proud to say that I'm a black female. But I have a problem with some of these people that come from these other places where they are not born Canadian. They don't even speak in a way where you can understand what they're saying. And thirdly, for some reason they get access to resources, but when you have people who, for instance, are born Canadians, they can't seem to access what is needed to also better their quality of life. So I just wanted to say to this, Ahmed Hussen guy, or however you say his name, I actually don't have any respect for him. I don't have any respect for you, Mr. Hussen, because I find that you're very, very problematic, and you're very, very contentious. And even though you may be, this person who went through the process of receiving a legal education, you also have to understand in Canada that what was so-called legal may have not benefited certain communities. And I'm certainly not going to be the one to educate you, Mr. Hussen, but I find you very ignorant. I find you very belligerent. And some of you Somali men are very, very disgusting. And, you guys should really put aside your Muslim patriarchy, religion bullshit, and try and understand even what your own positionality is. And to my viewers who watch my videos, I can definitely say that this Mr. Hussen person doesn't even have the right to comment on what is Canadian, because he has no ethics. And I didn't even know that it was legal to register to be elected to a community that you don't even live in. Now, why would you even do that in the first place when you don't even have any connection to sort of the reality or the activities happening within the community. And that's who this Hussein person, or this Hussen person is he represents York South Weston in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and he lives in a community called Vaughan, apparently is what is being said. So I don't know who he is to talk about what is Canadian or what is not Canadian. I think he should actually maybe go travel to Nunavut, go live there for 5 years and try and understand what is Canadian there, or go move to Saskatchewan and go live there for 5 years and understand what is Canadian before making any comments. I was also watching this video, and it was what was mentioned. It's a video titled Raw, Watch Canada Immigration Minister Ahmed Hussen Avoid Questions About FGM. And for some that are not familiar with FGM, FGM stands for female genital mutilation, and it's a practice that, like, I didn't even know that this even existed anywhere in the world. But it happens to a lot of black women in a lot of these situations where there is this heavily religion domination stuff, this colonization religion stuff. And what it is it's a practice where you actually dissect the woman's genitalia. So you cut out pieces of the genitalia, you tear off certain layers of skin, and doing that is supposed to promote some kind of sexual discipline when it comes to a woman being loyal to her so-called religion patriarchal husband. So I was watching this video, and it really, really disturbed me to see how arrogant and problematic this so-called Hussen guy was. And I really have to, I'm going to do another video about this, specifically commending this elected representative, a white female. Her name is Michelle Rempel from Calgary Nose Hill. I'm familiar with Calgary, and this video shows an interaction between her and this Hussen guy, and she was asking him, what are you going to do about this practice as far as how it's being spoken about in immigration pamphlets or books that are given to also newcomers. And this guy was just so arrogant and so, I call it strategic ambiguity. And he was on one hand saying in another situation to this other white female, he was saying to her, Lisa MacLeod, Minister Lisa MacLeod in Ontario, he was saying to her that she should sort of watch her language when she's speaking about, these people that are seeking asylum. But on the other hand, in this other video about mutilation of women's anatomy, he was also using the same thing that he said to someone else on himself. So, he was just saying to this other white female elected person that, he couldn't comment on female genital mutilation. And that really, really, really bothered me, because I felt that, if you're first of all a university educated person, and you're a person that has some kind of experience being transported from one area to the another, and also if you are a person of a religion persuasion that actually practices this thing, this form of violence towards also black women, how come you can't comment on it as the Canada immigration minister? And when I watched this video, I was just surprised at his arrogance. And, you know, he said that he couldn't comment on a product that has not been completed. And I thought to myself, you know, how disgusting can you be? And, you know, I started thinking about some of the things that I've learned in my women's studies or in the women's studies side of my university studies. And I studied a lot about this thing called patriarchy. Like, I didn't even have an idea of what it is or what it was at the time in university. But I'm really happy to say that I am happy that I know something about this thing called patriarchy. And patriarchy is very disgusting. And as a black male from Somalia, how can you not be able to comment on something like that? And I really have to give this white female, Michelle Rempel, Honorable Michelle Rempel, credit from Calgary Nose Hill, which is in the northwest side of the city. I have to, in the northwest side of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I really have to give her credit, because when you look at this video and you listen to it, listen to what is being said. This white female elected representative, Michelle Rempel, she stated facts. She said, you know, internationally there are over 100 million women that go through this, blah, 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 and she stated her statistics. And you know what? Just look at like the interaction and sort of the feedback from this Minister Hussen person. And then to play the politics further, or to play the manipulation further, the questioning of the Liberal Party's position on female genital mutilation was also directed to the Deputy Minister of Immigration, who also happened to be a white woman. And if you listen to the way she answers the questioning, you know, she also speaks in a way where it's very strategic and it's very ambiguous. And they basically, the two of them, representing the Liberal Party of Canada, want to say that they can't comment on something that has not been completed. Now, if you are university educated persons, you will know that there's a lot of research that already exists in the university system. So how is it that you can't even like go to the nearest university library and look up this stuff about, you know, female genital mutilation? And one thing I learned about the Liberal Party of Canada in my own studies around, you know, policy, analyzing different positions and what comes to be policy and policy writing, etc. I learned that one of the very strategic tactics of the Liberal Party of Canada is to not answer things or to delay things. So if you look at a lot of what they do, they will say, oh, we have to get researchers to look into this or look into that. And when you actually explore that further, we do have very good institutions in Canada, to the extent where a body of knowledge exists that talks about the issues that the Liberal Party of Canada have always been pressed on. So they're known to use these strategic tactics to basically get elected to these positions and do nothing. And in York South Weston, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Mr. Ahmed Hussen is overseeing a riding, a community, a region, or a ward that has the worst poverty in North America. And so when you don't even live in the community, you can't identify with the issues. So who is this guy to even say what is Canadian or what is not Canadian? I really wish that, the Canadian populace would inform themselves and educate themselves about even the founding of something called Canada. And even though a lot of information about what happened with the, I call them Canadian natives, the dark-skinned natives before implementation of the Indian Act, people need to understand what happened beginning with the dark-skinned natives. And, being in Ontario, I was also raised for a lot of my life in the Canada Prairie, so I got to understand things related to like historical issues, as well as things related to, following rules and understanding what stuff related to contributing to your nation state is all about. And one thing I learned in the Canada Prairies is that you really have to question how things evolve even under this thing called the Liberal Party of Canada. So on that note, I just wanted to say to this Hussen person, I find you very disgusting. I find you an embarrassment, and I really think that you should step down because you are actually not competent. You don't respond to any issues that interrogate poverty in York South Weston, and even the personnel at your office, they're very unprofessional. So it doesn't matter how you send out these stupid, glossy-looking newsletters talking about how great the Liberal Party of Canada is. Mr. Hussen, you have to be very, very ashamed of yourself to even represent something called the Liberal Party of Canada. And Mr. Hussen, coming from a person who knows something about Canada, you need to actually go take a trip to other parts of Canada. Like, go live in the Yukon for like a year, or not even a year, 5 years, and see what it's like. Go live in Saskatchewan and see what the Canadian prairies are like. And you know what? Do some research and try and understand, even your own position, not being able to comment on something called female genital mutilation that also disproportionately impacts a lot of black women from the part of the world that you're coming from. So on that note, to the viewers, thank you very much for watching my videos. Just to let you know, my videos are test videos, so I'm practicing different techniques and different things. And I'm not interested in reading from a script. I'm not interested in, presenting a position where it's informed by somebody else saying, oh, you should say this. I speak from my own informed position. So I'm working on some things, and I just wanted to say thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments, please do leave your comments in the comment section below. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, my email is goose as in the bird, so Goose Canada. So that's goose as in the bird, Canada as in the country. So goosecanada@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching, and have yourself a wonderful day today. Bye.